Welcome to Elliot and Tom's Book Club. We pick a book that meant something both to us and talk about it, why it was important to us, what it meant to us, what it changed about us. This week on Book Club, we're talking about 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. 4,000 Weeks is a reminder that life is finite. It explores the true definition of finitude for human existence, a word I didn't know before this book. Yet rather than wallow in the misery of this, it celebrates that we have to make wonderful choices to forgo things, and that not doing everything is in fact the secret to a happy life. The book is about time management, with the insight being that we have to choose to do very few things, or we will be severely disappointed because we cannot do everything. It came from the author's unhappiness with his busy schedule and unfinished projects, despite being a productivity expert. Oliver Burkeman goes on to explain how life is simply better when we make choices to do things and choices to not do others. The book is divided into two sections. The first, Choosing to Choose, walks the reader through how we and modern culture convince ourselves that we can fit everything into our schedule if only we were a little bit more productive or a little bit more disciplined. The first step is recognizing that you must choose to choose because you cannot do everything. If you do not choose, your life will fill with ever more meaningless and superfluous junk, as your bar for acceptance is low if you believe you can do everything. Once we realize this, Oliver guides you through the depression from when you realize you'll never learn Spanish to the happiness from seeing that human existence is defined by our limited capacities and the choices we make.
Books like Deep Work, like Essentialism, and this book, 4,000 Weeks, they're there to challenge those assumptions. That work, life, fulfillment, it's more about picking the right things than it is about just doing more things. Hustle culture is mainly nonsense. Working hard matters, but not when it's wasted on things that don't matter.
It showed me that I was still keeping a lot of optionality, still believing that I could do everything, still believing that if I was just a little bit more productive, I'd be able to reach all of my dreams. Reach this end state of success where there's no problems and it's just rainbows and unicorns and happiness everywhere. But that isn't life, and that's okay.
No matter what we do, no matter how hard we try, there's always going to be something else. It is an absolute waste of the very limited time that we have to be working towards getting everything done. Tomorrow, there is always going to be more to do. That doesn't mean do nothing, but it does mean be selective with pushing the boulders up the hill, lest they roll back down every night. It might have been in the book, and certainly this idea is, but someone once said something to me along the lines of, don't lament doing the dishes as if by some magic doing them hard and doing them well today means there are going to be no more dishes tomorrow. There's always going to be more to do. There's no end to it, so we need to accept that, and we also need to pick the things that we spend our time on and the things that we give our 100% to.
I thought I knew these topics. I thought I knew a lot about them, about how choosing was important, about how prioritization is key. But something in this book made me actually realize I didn't understand this concept of choice at all. And in fact, anything that I thought I knew was just me regurgitating philosopher armchair wisdom. It made me realize that in fact I fall trapped and I fall prey to every single trap of productivity hack that is mentioned in this book. There is literally notes in my Kindle highlighted with the one note saying cringe. I'm always trying to keep doors open and do everything. But what this book made me see is that choice is what makes life sweet, and I should run after that.
The solution to this mystery, dramatic though it may sound, is that whenever we succumb to distraction, we're attempting to flee a painful encounter with our finitude. With the human predicament of having limited time, and more especially in the case of distraction, limited control over that time, which makes it impossible to feel certain about how things will turn out. This feeling of always wanting to have a full calendar, a full to-do list, more and more and more stuff to do. You lay your head down at whatever time you go to bed and you think, actually, no, I'm going to get up. There's more stuff to be done. It really solidified that familiar feeling and revealed that a lot of that feeling comes from wanting to be in control of everything and very many things that are outside of my control. And the fear that came with that, not having full control over my situation, is what drove me to not have a moment of empty time. There's always more. So much of life is outside of our control, and that's just life.
The paradox of limitation, which runs through everything that follows. The more you try to manage your time with the goal of achieving a feeling of total control and freedom from the inevitable constraints of being human, the more stressful, empty, and frustrating life gets. But the more you confront the facts of finitude instead and work with them rather than against them, the more productive, meaningful, and joyful life becomes. This is the first time I saw that there is actually a paradox of attempting to do more. This was my first learning and understanding of the paradox of limitation. In my entire life, I've always lived in the first example, where I'm trying to exert more control. I'm trying to overcome impossible constraints to overcome to achieve things. And in fact, that makes everything worse. It reminds me a lot of all of the ideas around Buddhism and Jiu-Jitsu and martial arts of using energy to your advantage rather than fighting against it. And I've been fighting against it my entire life. And I think for the first time, I'm starting to realize that I should be using that energy to guide me in the places I want to be. And in fact, that will be easier and make it more joyful.
So I have this 10-year plan, right? And prior to reading this book, it had a lot of stuff on it. Like a lot. And I read this book for the first time last year. And after doing that, I went to my 10-year plan and I culled it. I cut so much stuff out of that plan, realizing that what I needed to keep was the fundamentals. The things that are important enough to be up there on my wall, seen every day for 10 years. And that doesn't mean it's all I'm going to do, but it means that anything that's not on there is either going to be a nice little bonus, an exciting experience along the way, or probably won't be missed.
This book made me realize that I had 10 different versions of who I could be in my head. I could be someone living in New York, a busy businessman, or I could live in a hut in the South American jungle. All of those appealed to me for different reasons. And I realized that I hadn't made any choices towards being any of those people, and therefore I was being no one. This book has made me realize that I continually keep doors open. It made me to be a much more discerning person now and actually making choices. And to me, it's all around saying no to things rather than saying yes to things. I'm very good at saying yes to things. I'm working on saying no to more things. One fantastic part of this book is it has 10 very, very practical approaches to how you should consider changing and operating in your life. Number 1, adopt a fixed volume approach to productivity. We only have so many hours in the day and can only ever do so much. Rather than thinking you can fit more in and get everything important done, you're better off focusing on choosing what to do. The practical tip here is to keep 2 to-do lists, an open to-do list and a closed to-do list. The open to-do list can fill up with everything that comes through your mind. If you've read Getting Things Done, imagine the inbox. The closed to-do list is your work in progress, things you're actually working on right now. And that can only ever have a fixed number of items on it, and it can only be added to once something's been removed. Whether that's 3 things, whether that's 5 things, or whether that's 10 things. You cannot keep adding to this list until things are done, and this is all about reducing your work in progress.
Tip number 2 follows on from number 1 pretty well, which is serialize. The advice here is doing stuff in parallel is a recipe for disaster. Context switching, keeping track of multiple projects, it'll do your head in, you'll get less done overall. Pick one thing, especially one big project, you'll get it done faster and you'll get more done overall.
Number 3, decide in advance what to fail at. You're inevitably going to fail at something, and that's okay because everyone does. You're inevitably going to be an underachiever in something, and that's okay. Choose what you're going to be an underachiever at.
Tip number 4 is to not only focus on what's left, but what you've done. You've got to celebrate the wins. You should even suggest keeping a done list to celebrate the progress you've made, reflect back on that, and realize just how much output you've had without just worrying about what's going on in the future.
Number 5, consolidate your caring. There are infinite number of causes out there that are important, but you can't care about all of them and you can't put effort into all of them. So pick your cause, whether it's the environment, whether it's human rights, whether it's your local community. Pick that and put your time into that. Doesn't mean that the others are not important, but focus your attention of where you can help.
Number 6 is to embrace single-purpose boring technology. Using notebooks, using apps that do one thing well, and even making your existing technology more boring. I mean, you can do what I do, and you can put your phone in grayscale. It stops the dopamine hit and makes you use it a little bit less. Embrace the boring. Not everything has to be the hyper-optimized super application with 10 million features. Focus on doing the real thing, not on the tools that help you get there.
Number 7, seek out the novelty in the mundane. A phenomenon in life is that life appears to speed up as we age. They say, as my grandpa used to say, the days drag on but the years fly by. The likeliest explanation for this phenomenon is that we encode the passage of years on the basis of how much information we process in any given interval. Childhood has so many novel experiences, whereas adulthood does not. That's why childhood seems to take a lot longer. Seeking out the exquisite in the mundane is all about focusing on the now. Take pleasure in the dishes. Look at the plates and the beautiful ceramics on the plate that you're washing. Experience life with twice the usual intensity, and the experience of your life would be twice as full as it currently is. No matter what it is, pay attention.
Tip number 8 is be a researcher in your relationships. It's pretty easy in an effort to be in control of all things in your life to try and be in control of how you interact with others. I've been guilty of this myself. You're talking to somebody, they're an interesting person, but your mind is distracted on what you're going to say when they finish talking rather than listening to them. So, take the moment, embrace them, be curious, dive deep into who they are, and release any expectations of getting out something on the other side or controlling it. And you'll probably find that those relationships end up being better for it.
Number 9, cultivate instantaneous generosity. If you ever have a thought to email someone to tell them that they did good work, call a friend to see how they're doing, or donate money to a cause, just do it. We don't act on these urges not out of being mean or not being out of, or for nefarious reasons. We just do it. We don't act on them because we feel a little bit awkward, a little bit uncomfortable. But there's always space for generosity.
So tip number 10, this is the finale, and that is to practice doing nothing. To spend time not engrossed in a million different things, not distracted, not working on anything, not doing anything else. And with that, see ya.